Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this Massachusetts Innovation Career Pathways Community of Practice workshop on inclusive and effective internships and capstones. We're so happy that you're here, and we thank you for your patience as we got our facilitation team into the Zoom room, and now we are admitting folks as they arrive to this workshop. We have a packed agenda and we do want to get started right away. So we'll ask you if you would please update your Zoom name so that includes your school or district affiliation and your pronouns if you wish. That will be a help to us. And then we have just a few technical notes that we'll need to go over before we dig into our content related to capstones and internships. So we will be here for 90 minutes this afternoon. And during that time, you can access closed captions for the session. The instructions are here on the screen. And if you look for the little red box that says live, and then click on the down arrow, you'll get instructions on how to access closed captioning in real time. This is also providing the transcript and recording for this workshop. We are recording it so that we can post it afterwards for folks who are not able to join us live today. This workshop and all the offerings in the community of practice are provided to you through a partnership between the Center for Collaborative Education and DESE. And you'll have a chance in a minute to meet the team of people who are part of that partnership. My name is Annie Leonard. I'm the Director of Programs for CCE and the Innovation Career Pathways Project Lead. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Allison, who's CCE's Director of Operations. You should feel free to message Allison in the chat if you have any technical needs. We want the workshop to be fully accessible for everyone. So if there's anything that you need that we can help with, please contact Allison in the chat. And then I would like to pass to my DESE colleague, Jennifer Gwatkin, to introduce herself and any other DESE folks in the room.
Great. Thank you, Annie. Good afternoon to so many of you. It's great to see faces familiar and those who are new. I appreciate you joining us. I'm Jennifer Gwatkin. I'm the Innovation Career Pathways Lead for DESE, and I've been very fortunate to be with the network since the very beginning, not the very beginning of time, but 2017, 2018, which is when we launched our first cohort. And it was a small but mighty cohort of 7 districts. And now we're knocking on, I think, 120 schools being in the network. We just finished, by the way, for those of you who are in the process now, we just finished having our review meeting going over the 47 applications we received. So we've grown by leaps and bounds, and I'm extremely grateful for this community of practice to help us grow in ways that are very meaningful and impactful for our learners. Don't think Latoya's here yet. She had to go to another meeting before she joins us, but she is on her way. And because there's so many people on the participants list, I'm not going to scroll through to find DESE colleagues, but DESE colleagues, if you are here, feel free to give a shout out in the chat.
Thank you, Jennifer. And I want to let folks know that we have great representation today from our amazing cohort of 24-25 peer ambassadors. So from this group today, we have Tanya Baez from Dearborn STEM and Dave Mora from Uxbridge High School, who will both be presenting on the culminating experience, intern and capstone components of their pathway programming. And then we are also joined by a couple of other peer ambassadors, Marlene from Fairhaven, Meredith from Carver will be here a little bit later, and Lindsay from Hoosick Valley High School, who will be supporting breakout room facilitation later in the workshop, along with Tanya and Dave and myself. And as always, when we start our workshops, we want to find out who is in the room. We're going to use a poll to do that today so that we can gather a little bit of information about the current level of experience with pathways in the room. And also gather your thoughts about culminating experience outcomes. So we're asking, what is one observable, measurable outcome that you would look for as evidence of student learning in an internship or capstone? So that poll should be appearing for you now, and I will leave you with a couple of minutes to answer the question about your level of experience and your thoughts about culminating experience outcomes. So something we know from the registration form is that there are folks here from all across the state of Massachusetts. All 6 industry sectors are represented. We have folks who have job titles from counselor to teacher, pathway coordinator, internship coordinator, building and district level administrators. We've got workforce board partners in the room. And as we're starting to see, and in a second, I'm going to end the poll so that you can see the poll results. We have folks here who are really just beginning to explore the idea of pathways for their schools. And then we have folks who are longtime designees who were part of that first cohort that Jennifer mentioned. So here come the poll results. You should be seeing those now. And you can see that there is distribution across the levels. Um, and, um, and that means that when we think about the content for this workshop, oops, um, we want you to bear in mind that our goal is to provide content that gives you access to resources and best practices that will help you wherever you are in the process of planning, design, or implementation of innovation career pathways. We want to focus on practices and resources that help advance equity in your pathways and inclusivity in work-based learning environments like the internships and capstones. And as always, to help you build connections across our network. So there's no cookbook for innovation career pathways. There's not a single recipe, but we want to help you build awareness and understanding that will help you better understand your students, your setting, your local context as you grow your pathways. So we have a full agenda and we'll be sharing a lot of links to resources in the course of this agenda this afternoon. And we do want to be sure that you don't stress about grabbing all those links when they're shared in the chat. So we prepare a resource guide, and Allison has put the link to that resource guide in the chat. What we will do is update it after today. If there are additional resources shared, we will add them and then resend it out to you when it's updated so that you can easily find and return to and share the things that you learn about today. So we're gonna charge forward into some of the fundamentals of the capstone and internship elements of pathways, starting with a look at some of the defining criteria. And we're also going to intermingle that fundamental information with the perspectives coming from Dave and Uxbridge High School and Tanya and the Dearborn, so that you're getting perspectives direct from the field about what this looks like in practice. All right. So as we begin, we do want to present a reminder for some of you, or perhaps an introduction to the defining criteria for internships as part of innovation career pathways from the designation criteria. These include that an internship involves at least 100 hours at a work site, that it involves the use of a work-based learning plan. And Allison has put into the chat a link to that work-based learning plan. We know some of you are used to finding it on the Connecting Activities site, and it is now available on the MIFA Pathways site. But as some schools are in transition to the use of MIFA Pathways, we've put a copy of that work-based learning plan in our resource library so you can easily find it there. Internships should also include an employer mentor. And we have a great resource that came to us from our friends at the Berkshire Mass Hire Board, which is a sample contract for a student, family, educator, and employer mentor that could be adopted and adapted for your setting. And then the reflection and ongoing reflection and end of internship reflection are part of the defining criteria. Lastly, this is an experience that needs to be captured and coded in SIMS so that it is appearing on student transcripts and available for state data monitoring purposes. Now, with those basics in mind, I'm going to pass the mic over to Dave Mora, the Uxbridge High School Dean of Students and Internship Coordinator, who's going to talk about what this looks like in his setting.
All right. Thank you, Annie. I appreciate the introduction, and thank you, everybody, for jumping on the call. My name's Dave Mora. I'm the Dean of Students at Uxbridge High School. I do a lot of things here, and my main job is coordinating internships connected to pathways and internships in general. I wear several other hats as well. So I'm going to jump right into, because we're under a tight schedule, I'm going to jump right into our internship model. I figured, to accommodate some of those bullet points that were just previously mentioned on the last slide, I was hoping to just kind of talk about the process first. So it just so happens in a timely fashion, we're in the month of March, and then we're already starting to get ready for the 25-26 school year. So what we do is we kind of open up a Google document, a Google form rather, and it's sort of we label it the internship interest form, and we'll email that out to the rising seniors, the current juniors first. Obviously, those who are connected to pathways will fill out. They'll have an option to fill out internship or capstone element to that, and then some of them will do both. And then as they're meeting with their guidance, as their school counselors who set the schedule, they'll determine if they have how much time built into their schedule. Can they do an internship if it's feasible? Really, the only contingency, I guess, the only block that would prevent them from doing an internship is if they fail classes their sophomore and junior year, and they have to double up in an English or a math, and that kind of really limits the time and space they have to do an internship. So if they're connected to a pathway and they fall into that category, they'll probably end up doing a capstone because they won't have the time to leave the building to go to and from. So that's pretty much what's happening in the month of March. Then in April and May, we'll start to look at the responses in a spreadsheet, and I'll start meeting with these students to meet with the interns, and we'll start setting up the partnerships. We'll get those confirmed, and we're continuing scheduling appointments and rescheduling appointments with counselors who are very good in terms of lining up their blocks of internship so they're consecutive in their particular in terms of the schedule and the times that they can meet. When we get into June, at the end of the year, once the seniors graduate, we bring them in. We start getting them on their Blaze app, which I'll speak to in a minute. We meet with the interns also to go over expectations and review the application. And we try to really encourage them to submit their final application by the last day of school, so I can spend the summer doing sorting the paperwork and whatnot. That is still a hard copy. It's not an electronic copy. We're trying to digitize that, so it might be easier to do that in terms of facilitating that. But as of right now, it's still a paper copy. There is a few signatures they have to follow up with between themselves, their parents and their supervisors, and then I sign off on the last line there, and I give it the stamp of approval. They will, and they can also submit those through the summer. I'm in the building a couple days a week in the summertime. I can collect those applications. Our goal is to try to get at least 90% set up for the start of the school year. And then as the school year starts, we can get that last 10%. We can kind of focus in on those and get them going in that first full week of school. We do bring them back in September and kind of review the guidelines and expectations again, because I'm sure they forgot everything we told them in June. That they didn't really retain that too much. So we'll have that meeting once again, and then they're off and running. We start school in the last week in August, so if their internships are ready to go and they've already been approved, applications are in, they can start that first week. But we're only here for a couple days. We officially start that Tuesday after Labor Day. That's kind of like the official startup time. We can go to the next slide. I don't know if I have access to that. So just to kind of give you the numbers, obviously from a data standpoint, I'm one of the peer ambassadors that facilitates the data component of it. And one of the things that we've been tracking, obviously, is, how many interns have we been getting? When I started in 2021, there were 34 interns and only 7 were connected to a pathway. That's coming at the heels of COVID and kind of getting back into school. And Dr. Rubin really wanted to define, our principal really wanted to define my role as a dean of students, okay, or redefine the role of a dean of students. I mean, I've been in the classroom for 28 plus years teaching social studies. So, and I did teach a CTE course over at when I was at Dighton Rehoboth. So I did have some experience in terms of setting up co-ops and whatnot. So I've kind of had that training already embedded. But anyways, as you can see by each year, and I probably should have put this more in a graph setting, our amount of internships are climbing. And what even more importantly, the connection to pathways is climbing even higher. So we're really excited about that. Our goal is to get, for instance, we have 110 seniors in this year's class. We're grades 8 through 12, by the way. And, we want 110, we want 100% participation. We like to have everyone get that work-based experience, whether it's connected to a pathway or not. So, yeah, we're kind of full steam ahead, and, we're looking for ways that we could improve our program, what the students get out of it. So if we go to the next slide, I can kind of touch upon that. So as they're not only are they doing, the technical skills trained by their supervisors or their mentors, we're really focusing on the durable skills. Okay, so they'll write a weekly or bi-weekly reflection question, depending on the week, just sort of outlining what they did in connection with a durable skill that we may be talking about, or just an overall, how's what's going on in the internship. We do use a feature called Emblaze, which we purchase, and the student, it's really, it calculates their hours, so I can track their hours, I can track their times, I can generate timesheets if I need to. If we had any of these interns were getting paid through a grant, we use I'm drawing a blank right now. What's the organization that helps with students with IEPs? This is so bad of me. IEPs, students at risk, they pay interns. Help me out. Somebody jump on and yell it out to me. Karen Aries, I know you're on the call. Can you help me out?
Accessibility.
YouthWorks, thank you. God, I drew a blank there.
And thanks to Adam.
The reason why I forgot, because I don't really have to deal with them this year. They're actually taking more of a lead on that. So that's awesome. Thank
Adam Wingo for the win.
Thank you. So yeah, we do have YouthWorks. So in the past, I've collected timesheets, and that's really helped me organize that and do it in a timely fashion. So it really has a lot of features. I'm not here to, they don't pay me to say it, but I will say it's a game changer, and it really helped in terms of organizing. And it also pins their location when they sign in, so I know that they're actually there. And we did an evacuation drill 2 weeks ago, and I was able to account for all my interns who were either off campus or on campus during the course of the evacuation. So everybody who signed in was accounted for. So that was really, that was very helpful. We do host, now what we did was we ended up doing what is called a morning durable skill cohort meeting. So in other words, the way the schedule falls, sometimes they have only one block of internship that lands in the morning. We have a waterfall schedule, so that means like, one class is dropping each day and everything slides down. So if their internship blocks get separated, like a morning and an afternoon, we'll have them come in that morning. So our cohorts are anywhere between 7 interns to 13 or 14. We meet in the conference room. I use AI to get some activities going in terms of the durable skills. I grabbed that off the work-based learning plan and kind of adapted it and put it more in Uxbridge language. And we just, like I said, it's a check-in. It's a roundtable discussion. Sometimes, we're really trying to push that collaboration between the interns so they start talking about their experiences. They need a lot of prompting right now because, it's the first thing in the morning at 7:30. I let them bring food in as long as no one has any allergies. They can bring their coffee, their iced coffee, their drinks, just as they would in a professional setting. And we do that little roundtable activity, a discussion. And I posted something early on. I try to do, a bi-weekly post. And I think if we can click on that, we can open that up. You can follow me on LinkedIn and see it yourself. But this was back early in September where our students were working on our first durable skill of attendance and punctuality, and they were kind of brainstorming ways to improve their attendance and punctuality and why it's important. And what happened was, I posted that and I got a phone call from a gentleman that we do some work in the CAPS network. And he said, "What are you doing with your durable skills?" And I said, "We meet in the morning, we take attendance, we just do some activities connected to that." I said, "Well, it's growing traction and you need to go and present that." So that's basically what I did. I ended up presenting to a national organization just on that piece alone in terms of what we do on each morning. So the evaluation tools that I use in terms of that, what I devised was we went up to the CAPS summer huddle in Kansas City, and I was able to utilize, first off, I used the durable skill evaluation tool that I took from the work-based learning plan, and then I have a performance plan, which they post their findings. So they're going to take that with them at the end of the semester, end of the school year. So they'll have that spreadsheet. So if we can open up first the durable skill evaluation tool.
So rather than open those on the screen, the links have been put in the chat and they're
Okay.
also linked in the resource guide. So I'm going to let folks do that on their own devices,
All right.
and keep this slide up on
All right, perfect. Yeah,
Zoom
that
screen.
works. So I have another screen open, so I'm going to kind of go off of mine. So basically, they get evaluated in each durable skill on a scale of 1 to 5. I meet with the intern supervisors and mentors at the beginning of each semester, whether it's through a Zoom call in the beginning of the year, they come in for a breakfast, and I break it down so at the end of each quarter, they're going to sit down with their intern, and they're going to rate them on a scale of 1 to 5, and they just simply plug it in and write a few comments down. I really discourage them from giving them 5s because, as you know, I wouldn't even give myself a 5 in some of these categories, depending on the day, right? So if we have 17 and 18-year-olds, young folks that are getting 5s, that means they maxed out, they peaked already at that age. So they really have to, and it's gotten better in terms of, instead of saying, Johnny and Sally, oh, they're great kids, I'm going to give them a 5. They communicate so effectively, really, because I know most teenagers don't communicate effectively, and but it is teaching them that responsibility. Right now, we're in the let's see, the motivation and initiative on a professional level, and it's really opened up their eyes in terms of how to not only what does taking initiative mean outside of work, but what's it mean inside of work, and in terms of your career, and how do you find your purpose. So that's been sort of an eye opener for them because no one's really done that with them before. And shame on me, I've been coaching football for over 30 years, and I gave him this tool last year. And I said, you could go out and get evaluated on these durable skills. Good luck. And we never really went over it, right? So that's why I really moved to this model in terms of meeting with them in the morning, so we can I can expose them to what this looks like and how they can be performing this at the job site. I'm not going to teach the engineers how to become engineers. I'm not going to teach, the graphic designers or the digital media people how to do that stuff. But we can certainly I can certainly show them those employability skills that they can use and transfer that to any industry that they may choose and desire. So once we finish up motivation initiative, we're going to probably get into critical thinking, because that's been registering high on the list on the job descriptions. We kind of myself and Dr. Rubin did a deep dive looking at which durable skills are showing up on job descriptions, and we found that over 60 million job postings that they covered, about 70% have at least 3 durable skills that are required of them. And then they did a deeper dive where which durable skill was the most common when the C in communication popped up. So we actually had them go and do a skills assessment using AI. And everyone in the room so far has seen durable skills, the communication piece on there. So what I had them do was take a sticky note, put it on their laptop. So every time they open up that laptop, they just found their why. Why are we doing these lessons, right? Why are we, even in class, during, this is embedded not only just for in the morning meetings, but this is embedded in their curriculum, all right? And that started 2 years ago in terms of embedding that into the curriculum. So the school-wide, the entire school is getting exposure to these durable skills in some way, shape, or form when it's connected to their curriculum. We've been finishing up the semester with an internship showcase, and that is also linked. You can check that out in terms of what's required of that. We meet in November at the start of the second quarter, and we kind of digitize that in terms of how we showcase some of their work. So they do basically, there's a sequence of directions which they put on Canva, and then we bring it to the print shop, and the interns down there, the graphic design interns, will print off the work that's been shared, and the interns will go down and pick it up, and they'll set up their poster boards, and we had them design an elevator pitch message, basically. So when, it's one thing when your parents come in and look at the work that you're doing, but how does an 18-year-old going to express what they did for the semester to strangers, to their peers, to their teachers that they haven't had in a few years? Former teacher, we invite the community, obviously the industry partners, the parents, the stakeholders. It's been an awesome, each year it's been getting better and better. We found that we captured that moment in January at the end of the semester from the first semester interns. The second semester interns, we only pick up a few new ones. So I feel comfortable in saying that a lot of them have already done that showcase. So what we're going to do this year is we're going to flip it. We're going to actually have the interns go into the classrooms of the 9th and 10th graders, and they're going to kind of talk about their experience in terms of becoming an intern, what's required of them. So it kind of gives them something. I can't tell you how many, on the discipline level, how many young students, 8th and 9th graders, I brought in about, and they don't see the big picture yet, obviously, right? As an 8th grader, they're not thinking about an internship, but those conversations are being had with the younger grades, and now they're already starting to talk about what they wanted to do. And I said, well, the reality is, if you don't pass your classes, and you don't show me that you can behave yourself outside the building, you won't be a candidate for this. All right. So, that's one of the caveats to that. So the
Dave,
performance plan,
yeah, that's terrific to hear about, and definitely the durable skills performance plan is getting a lot of love in the chat, as is the connections from the older students to your 8th graders, to younger students, as mentors, and building enthusiasm about the coming opportunities for pathways and internships. I am going to ask you to pause there. I know you probably have more to say, and there may be questions. Keep putting your comments and questions in the chat. We'll do our best to get back to them during today's workshop, or if not, to follow up afterwards. But I want to make sure that we're moving on to give some time to the capstone and how that fits into pathway programming at the Dearborn STEM. So one of the interesting things about our two schools that are being spotlighted today is that in the case of Uxbridge, all of the students do internships, but there is a capstone option. And then it's the mirror of that when we look at the programming at the Dearborn STEM Academy. The capstone is designed into all students' pathway experiences, and there's an internship option. So sometimes the question comes up when folks are early on in the process, is it one or the other or both? And the answer really does depend on your particular design decisions about what's best for your students and your setting. So when we look at the basic criteria for capstones, these are drawn from the designation criteria, and they describe a well-designed process to identify a project for the capstone that aligns with the industry sector. Again, the 100-hour requirement, participation of a mentor or an advisor, ideally from outside of the school setting. And then the creation of a high quality end product, and to be able to be captured in SIM. So you can hear that there are elements in common, such as that high quality end product and the capacity to assess student outcomes that are common across capstones and internships. But we want to hear more about capstones, so I'm going to pass the mic to Tanya Baez from Dearborn STEM Academy to talk about how that program builds from the early grades right through to grade 12 and even maybe a year 13 at the Dearborn for her students.
Hi, everyone. I am so happy to be here with everyone. My name is Tanya Baez, and I am the Work-Based Learning Manager at Dearborn STEM Academy. We are a 6 through 12 school with pathways in engineering, computer science, health and life science. And we actually use the capstone component all across grade levels. So in 6th and 7th and 8th grade, students use Reflect and Rise, where they have the opportunity to review their work in classes like ELA, science, history, math, art, gym. And the essential question that they're asking is, what problem-solving strategies can individuals and communities use to manage conflict and change? And this is an opportunity for students to not only reflect on their growth throughout the year, but also ask questions about where do they see themselves in the future? What opportunities do they want to engage in at the Dearborn? And also the people that impact their experience, right? And the why is reflect on where we have been and how we have grown, helps us understand who we are and what our long and short-term goals can shape our future. We have a middle school pathway planning team, and the goal with the pathway planning team is for our students to see the cohesiveness and experiences from middle school to high school, so that students are already thinking about what pathway they're going to choose in 10th grade, at the end of 10th grade. So with graduation in mind, right, we have students look at these principles, like, are you determined, supportive, are you a leader? And what are the expectations for DSA and the profile of a graduate, right? The determined, I set and meet challenging goals. Supportive, I show respect, care, and love for myself and my community. And a leader, I take initiative by using my voice to advocate for myself and others. And this sets the tone for students to be constantly reflecting on their experiences. And also, it also gives them the motivation, and I feel like they feel empowered after they've experienced capstone to be like, this hasn't been just a 1-year experience, but this has been a 6-year experience of me reflecting, thinking about, where do I want to go? What opportunities do I want to engage in? And the fact that students are all required to do capstone also gives them the insight that maybe that the content or the opportunities that I have at Dearborn, I think I'm going to choose an internship. And that's perfectly fine. We support students that want to do all things, especially those that see themselves like, I want to take early college classes, but I also want to do an internship. And we're really supportive of that. And we find schedules, like if we need to place students in an internship in February and April vacation, for them to be able to actually like engage with professionals and take part of an experience because of conflict with schedules. We're super accommodating, and this has been really, really, really a great learning experience also for teachers to see the growth in students, and also what are we doing to entice students to do more, to take part, to be a part of their community. So as it's all through grade 6 through 12, we also have the defensive learning that is specific for students in grades 9 through 11. And they use a graduate profile also, where they're asked to ask about specific questions, which is like, were you the strongest this year? Did you show a lot of growth this year? What struggles did you go through? Are you determined, supportive, and a leader in the Dearborn community? Where do you see yourself after high school, and what are your goals for the future? Also, what motivates you to accomplish these goals? And then who would you like to thank for supporting you on your journey so far? And what support do you need in the future, right? These questions, I feel like, hit the core of not only the experience, but who are they as a human? How do they show up, right? How do they brand themselves, not only in the school community, but outside and just in the Boston community? And it has been really empowering for our students. And again, it also gives them the opportunity to embed these opportunities into Maicp so that they're able to look back and think about taking artifacts that they're able to reflect on, take experiences that have led them into choosing what pathway are they going to engage in. As this has been essentially important for students that are part of our DEC cohort, which is the Dearborn Early College students. Those students are actually on the path to receive their associate's degree by the time they graduate Dearborn. So it's been really important for our students to be able to really have career exposure opportunities, and for them to actually name the things that they want to do, right? So that once they make the decision to participate in DEC, they have to choose a major, right? And that's a big responsibility. So we want to make sure that students are engaging in career exposure opportunities that will set them in the right path and give them the opportunities that they actually want to engage in. We also have a career survey that all of our students are taking, grade 6 through 12. And this has been specifically helpful because we've been able to tailor experiences to group of students. Sometimes our students are motivated to participate in opportunities because they know that their friends are going to do it, right? And with this survey, we're able to tailor experiences and have students really pick the opportunities that they want to take part in. And that eliminates the distractions, right? That eliminates the distractions, and on top of it makes it intentional, right? We want our students to lead with intent in every experience that they want to embark on. And sometimes when we put them in professional places, right, to meet and network and connect, we want to make sure that they're doing it and they're bringing their best selves forward. So at the end of it, right, in 12th grade, we have the capstone. So the Dearborn STEM Academy Senior Capstone is a self-directed conclusion of students' pathway experience. So the questions that the students answer is, who am I now? Who do I want to become, and how can I get there? What do I want to know more about now, and how I can learn this? And what are my personal, academic, and career goals 1, 5, and 10 years from now? Go to the next slide. So during their capstone process, the students select a role. So they can either be the scientist, right, or the commenter. So the scientist researches about and creates a project on a topic that interests them from the pathways. So examples of science projects could be a computer program, a solution to an engineering design dilemma, or a public service announcement. And then some students take on the role of a commentator, which researches a topic, problem, or issue that is related to the topics. And they will use their research, and they actually get to present it to professionals. And even before we have the Capstone Expo, we invite professionals to come into our classrooms and engage in conversations with our students about their projects, where do they see themselves going, the skills that they've needed to build upon in order to make this capstone a success. If you go to the next slide. So there's capstone stages, right? So they have to have a proposal pitch, learn and build, right, where they create the product. They have the midpoint review, where they share their progress with industry professionals, get feedback, which is really important. They get to build again, right, using the learning from both the research and the recommendations made by professionals. Then they come up with a prototype. Then they have the revision where they use the feedback from prototype 1 to improve their product. And then they have the defense prep where they're able to reflect on their learning throughout the capstone, set goals for the future, and prepare for the capstone defense. And then the last stage is the capstone defense and expo, where we have students engage with not only themselves, but in like their senior class, but they also engage with students in lower grades that get to ask questions, be part of the expo, and actually give them the motivation, like this is gonna be me in a couple of years, right? I get to research a project, I get to build something that I'm really passionate about. And we also invite professionals and families to be part of this. And the students feel so motivated. They actually come out with products and projects that they'll be using in the future. And I always say, like, we always ask students to think about the skills that they're building on, right? They're engaging in curriculum in the classroom that are setting themselves for these industry opportunities and careers, right? How are we having students take ownership of these experiences so they're able to articulate their learning, right? I might not have a stop and shop job. I might not, babysit professionally, but I've been engaging in career exposure and career content in my classes, and having the students take ownership of that experience has been such inspiring. It's been inspiring to see them actually see the growth. Shatasia, the one in like the maroon shirt, she wants to become an esthetician, and she also wants to have her own makeup brand. And she's in the health and life science pathway. And I've been engaging in conversation with her ever since she was in 9th grade about like, what's your path? And it's been eye-opening to see the connection with healthcare and all the opportunities that she can have, even though she wants to become an entrepreneur, right? But it's about the transferable skills that we provide our students, and give them the insight that there's not a linear path. There's so many things, so many job opportunities, jobs that are not even out here yet, that you're able to create and build a life that you actually want to be part of.
Yeah, Tanya, I'm really hearing the importance of knowing your students well. So starting early, not just because it's a best practice to start programming early, but because that really allows the time for those relationships between educators and external mentors to develop, for students maybe to explore and then move away from a particular interest and go in another direction. And that kind of flexibility and opportunities to personalize these experiences is something I heard both in your and Dave's presentation. Also, I'm really hearing about what a team effort is important for these, right? This is not something that one internship coordinator or work-based learning manager can do alone ever. It's something that really takes a full team, and that really comes through. Even though you two are speaking on behalf of your schools, we know how many amazing classroom teachers, counselors, and other folks are involved in helping these students get to these culminating experiences. So I think if we had all the time in the world, what we would do at this point is dive a little more deeply into the career development model that really helps us highlight how these culminating experiences are part of a spectrum or a continuum that can begin even before the middle school grades, but certainly in the middle school years, with career awareness and the beginnings of career exploration, and then intentionally moving into career exploration in the early high school grades, and then gradually moving towards career immersion experiences. So this is the Massachusetts Career Development Model. It's most likely expressed in your school setting with your Maicp scope and sequence. And that can be carried out in various ways on a school-wide basis and in your pathways. We've got a bunch of resources about those, which Allison has put into the chat, including a scope for 9th through 12th grade, and then some resources from an in-person convening where we looked at integrating innovation career pathways and Maicp. But I know that probably everything that you have been hearing about so far has you eager for an opportunity to not just sit and listen, but actually to engage in some dialogue. And so I'm going to move us in the direction of breakout rooms. And don't worry, as you see me clicking past these slides, that content, the slide deck, will become available to you when we share the resources for this event. So when we go into breakout groups, those are going to be organized by industry sector. So you are going to have a choice. The choice of industry sectors will come up on your screen, and you can go to a pathway that you're already designated in or planning to apply for. And if you have any difficulty while you're trying to choose a breakout room, just unmute and ask Allison for help. She has the superpower to drop you into the group of your choice. Once you are in a breakout room, there will be a facilitator there who will ask you to introduce yourself and to share a high priority question that you have about capstones or internships, whether you're currently in the planning stages or already in implementation. As you can hear, this is continuous learning work where constantly seeking out feedback from educators, from students, from employer and other community partners informs a constant improvement process. So what questions are on your mind? You'll be invited to share that with your industry sector peers in the breakout group, and your facilitator will help facilitate a pretty open-ended discussion about strategies and resources that can help address those questions. We're going to be in the breakouts for about 15 minutes, maybe a little bit longer than that. So we want everybody to have some airtime, and then ask each group to choose a spokesperson to share an insight in the chat, and also to unmute and say that insight when we come back to our large group. If you come up with a resource, if you learn about a new resource, please put that in the chat when you come back as well, so that we can add them to our resource guide. And then there are a couple of prompting questions here on the screen now, just if you're sort of struggling to process all the amazing things you've been hearing about, or if you're feeling a little overwhelmed because it sounds like there's so much happening in these schools and you're just getting started, just take a look at these questions, see if something resonates. These are a few questions that are really focused on making sure that your internships are inclusive, both at the practical level, thinking about accessibility, and inclusive in terms of the quality of those learning experiences that you're providing. And then there's also been lots of great content shared today about effectiveness and thinking about learning outcomes from the internships. How do they fit into your school-wide vision of a graduate or portrait of a learner? What are the ways that you can think about employer onboarding so that there are positive outcomes for all students from your internships and capstones? So these are again, just some prompting thoughts, and your facilitators can help with that. Whenever we spend time in dialogue in this community of practice, we abide by these community agreements. They're based on the work of Glenn Singleton. And what we find is that they help us have the kind of collaborative, constructive, student-centered, improvement-focused dialogue that we want to have. So we ask you to read and consider these, and while you're doing that, I will ask Allison to go ahead and put up the breakout room choices, and that will send the facilitators out to the breakout rooms and give everybody else an opportunity to pick your industry sector. We'll be in the breakouts until 3:40 p.m. We are just waiting for all of the breakout rooms to return folks to the large room. And then what I'm going to do is call on each industry sector area and invite that spokesperson to unmute and tell us a little bit about whatever insight or lingering question came up in your breakout room. So we'll just go alphabetically through the sectors. So if we have an advanced manufacturing spokesperson who wants to unmute, go ahead and do that now.
Well, Annie, full disclosure, we had a pretty big group, so a chunk of our time was just kind of talking about where we're from and how many pathways we have. So I did not select a person to do that, so I'll take the lead on that. That's on me.
Sure thing.
Really, the pressing topics that once we were able to settle in and have discussion, was first about the schedule, and how that's, between a block schedule, how it's very conducive for, sending students out to internship because of the consistent times, to the waterfall schedule that we're in and some of the struggles against that. I know we had some conversation about curriculum in terms of defining careers, and for, schools that are just sort of building their internship program, just starting out, and they're using, the course, the online, I believe it was an online course on defining careers. It's something that it takes them through learning durable skills and some of the essential components in terms of preparing for a career. And then the biggest concern is, I think, on a couple fronts, was especially in advanced manufacturing, is finding industry partners, enough suitable industry partners that would be willing to take on multitude of students in that area.
That came up in the information room too. So thank you, Dave, for that. Let's go to business and finance next. Do we have a spokesperson from that sector?
Hello. Yes, we had a very important conversation, and we have Greg Ranieri to formulate this question for us. Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, we just talked about risk management for a school district. So are there mass laws or DESE supported guidance for a district or risk management? So for example, currently right now in our district, we have a student and family waiver form that was drafted by our attorneys about 5 or so years ago. We have a partnership agreement for the sponsors that covers some things like civil rights pieces that have come up in audits over the years. And we have, we query check the primary point person. But when a student leaves the campus, I mean, they could interact with a lot of employees, customers, like where would that end of due diligence? And then I recently had someone ask me, should we be fingerprinting people? And then I started to do research on other districts and their practices. I found a very interesting practice that some districts that I really respect follow, where they ask, the student fills out an application, is essentially asking permission for release time from school to go to the internship, versus it be the onus is not necessarily on the district, but the student and family are asking permission for this experience, which I think maybe allows for maybe a little bit of grace of some of the bureaucracy. A couple of the districts don't query at all. Some query. Some have waivers, some don't. None of them have fingerprinted. So I just didn't know if there was any just guidance as we move forward, because this is going to be real popular, right? I mean, the pathways, this is going to be a thing. So if we can gain some comfort with central offices, central administrators, and school boards, because if you start to think about it, there is could be liability, but so
yeah, Greg, thanks for speaking about your group's conversation. It's a huge question, and not one that we're going to be able to go in depth on at this point. I see folks are starting to put some comments in the chat, both about insights that came up and additional questions, and that's awesome. Facilitators, please feel free to put your thoughts in the chat, and participants as well, because we won't have time to dig into each group's big questions. I do want to give the clean energy group a chance if there's somebody from that sector who wants to unmute.
Thank you. We actually fell prey to this same issue that Dave did, and we did not select a spokesperson. So by default, I'll represent. We were a small but mighty group, and we actually covered 3 major topics and started to talk about them, and then fell into a time constraint. But those 3 were: how do we communicate clearly about the demands of the student-led experiences like capstone and internship when students are choosing to enroll in a pathway, either at the school level or within the school, selecting a pathway? And how do we make sure that our brand is really clear for families, so that if their student may be prone to anxiety or may not understand what's involved with that, how can we support them? And then how do we make sure that we have administrative buy-in, kind of soup to nuts for the whole program, but again, when it comes to work-based learning experiences? And then lastly, how can we decrease or remove the barriers for things like transportation, or for students who may not have the same resources, and make sure that we're looking at equitable experiences across the board, and that we find effective placements for students? So that's clean energy. Thank you.
Thanks, Meredith. How about from the environmental and life science room?
Hi, my name is Julie. I'll speak on our group. So we talked a couple of things. The first point was how environmental science and the life science is such a broad range. It's like lumping science into one standard. You just can't do that. And so another point that we discussed was the fact that for the life sciences / biotech, it's really tricky to find businesses for internships for our students to work in. And so it was comforting to know that I wasn't alone and that wasn't just us in Wilmington. And then we talked maybe more about having students do capstones as an alternative if, you know, we can't get businesses to buy in. But we're still working with Mass Hire and a lot of the other businesses, and then reaching out to alumni to try to get an in. And so that was our group. Thank you.
That's terrific, Julie. Thank you for that. I love the alumni connections idea. Let's go to the healthcare group.
We also didn't have one designated, but we touched upon a number of things when it came to scheduling, and also when do we choose to do internships or capstone, and how do we gauge partners? And we also touched upon how do we provide students these experiences and have them actually like engage in it.
Awesome. Okay. And last but not least, but possibly the smallest mighty industry sector group, was me and 2 colleagues in information. Mark, can you unmute?
Yes, our group was so small that we actually all knew each other from previous meetings. So echoing a lot of what other people have mentioned, you know, information is usually either hardware or software. So just depending upon which area you have, you might have easier opportunities, like for hardware and IT support, but for software and creative development, it's a little bit tougher. So both of us are from fairly rural areas, where there's not a lot of options that could involve security clearances. So, you know, we were really probably optimistic about what Dearborn was doing in terms of capstones, because if we can't have an industry partner, then we're going to have to look at capstones as our option. So we're just glad to have a model like that to help us improve our experience for our students.
Thank you for that, Mark. And I do want to say these questions, like there were, as Mark said, connections from some of the PLCs that we operate for the industry sector based groups, and I bet that other breakout rooms also had those PLC connections. Our PLC cycle is starting to come to an end for this year, but those will run again in the future, and they are a great place to have more free and open time for conversation with peers working in the same industry sector to talk in more depth about these questions. Another resource that's available to you that we want to remind you is a great way to continue these conversations is by starting a thread or responding to a thread in our portal on the maicp.org website. So Allison put the Join the Portal sign up link into the chat. If you're not already a member, please check it out. Consider getting a login and creating a profile. And most importantly, checking out the forum and seeing what folks are talking about or starting a topic in the forum so that the kinds of issues that are being raised today have a place where the conversation can be furthered. In addition to reminding folks about the portal, our peer ambassadors, as you've all seen today, are a fantastic resource. And under the About Us menu, there's a link to the peer ambassador page on the MAICP website. So please check out their profiles and know that they're available as a resource and all have experience in planning for and launching capstone and/or internship programs. So as we get ready to close today's event, we want to provide a couple of reminders about upcoming events in our calendar. We have a celebratory webinar coming up on the 8th of April that is welcoming new designees, where we both honor the successful designation announcements coming from DESE shortly about new pathways, and also try to provide some really practical advice for new designees that will give you a strategy for this spring and summer's work that will help ensure successful launch to new pathways in the coming school year, the 25-26 school year. So that's on the 8th of April. Registration for that is open now. And then when we get to the end of May, we will be holding our prospective applicant workshop. So that may be something that applies to you if your school is thinking about an additional pathway next year, or that may be something that you want to share with a colleague in another school who are thinking about exploring innovation career pathways. We have a couple of other things in the pipeline, not yet open for registration, but want you to know that we are hoping to be able to do a program spotlight with our peer ambassador and pathway leader from Hoosick Valley, Lindsay McGinnis. Lindsay and her colleague Erica will be our co-presenters at the Welcoming New Designees workshop, but that focus is really at a program system level. And we want also to be able to feature some students who are currently doing internships in that environmental life science pathway. So that's another way to continue some of the conversation and learning from today. We'll get that date set and send it out on the website and via email as soon as possible. We're also really excited this year to be able to pilot what we're calling a field experience for the first time. This is going to be a half-day in-person event for a small number of pathway educators and a few of their students. The focus is going to be healthcare and social assistance designee schools, and specifically those who may have an interest in behavioral health career pathways. We have a great new partner in the UMass Chan Medical School planning a really cool event that will involve using their simulation lab, as well as meeting and hearing the career journeys of some of the folks who work there at the medical school. So be on the lookout for that. And again, information will be on the events page at maicp.org, as well as coming to your email inbox from me. Before we close, and I'm happy to see that we still have a few minutes before 4 o'clock so that you can click on the survey link that Allison has just popped into the chat. And please complete that survey while your thoughts are fresh. We really rely on the feedback we receive from you in order to plan our future offerings and better meet your needs in the community of practice. As an added incentive, this is a survey that is anonymous, but after you complete it, you will be asked if you want to submit your email, and that email enters you in a drawing, which at the end of this school year can result in fabulous prizes. We distributed several last year and made some folks very happy, and quite poignantly, several folks said, I'm going to use this gift card for some things that are needed for our pathway. So really, the commitment and positive energy in this community of practice is terrific to be part of. Thank you all for your contributions in breakout rooms and in the chat today. Thank you to our breakout facilitators and especially to our two wonderful presenters. Dave Moore from Uxbridge High School, Tanya Baez from the Dearborn STEM Academy. Appreciate you sharing your experiences and amazing resources. And just a reminder that we do ask that if anybody who is accessing those resources, if you make use of them, just be sure to say thank you to Dave or Tanya, and also to credit them if you use those resources in your own setting. That helps us have this culture where folks are generous about sharing what they're developing, and it helps us build our resource library on the website as well. So I think we are just about ready to close out. I want to ask if Jennifer, any last words from you before we end the workshop for the day?
Wow, the last 90 minutes just flew. I think we could all benefit from having more time, but to be continued. Noted the questions you guys placed in the chat, the ones we didn't have immediate answers for. Like Annie said, we're always looking to add resources and check out our FAQs on the website. There's some stuff in there that might be helpful, but just, appreciate each and every single one of you. We're here because of you and because of, the kind of transformative experiences we want to provide to our learners. So thank you for your commitment to this and your enthusiasm, and we look forward to seeing you again really soon.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Thanks for coming, everybody. We'll see you at another Innovation Career Pathways event very soon.